Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the US Futures weekly chart analysis for the week ending 15th of November 2024. The first chart is the US dollar index futures. You can see prices really accelerated higher this week. That's put many of the associated markets under considerable pressure, as you'll see as we go on. This was the breakout line, at least in the relatively near term. Prices accelerated past that. The next level within this big wide range is there. That's where the market's closed this week. And the highs of the range likely go through there. So you can see the market has really pushed right up to the highs of the range. The next range above that begins here, up to here. There's likely to be supply within this range. There's also likely to be a relative vacuum in here, or at least reduced selling pressure within that zone there where the circle is. So if the market can get through this level, the selling pressure will reduce as price pushes higher, and it'll almost be sucked up to here. So that's something to watch, at least in the near term. We go in a bit closer here. And you can see that price really accelerated higher this week on reduced and slightly below average volume. That's showing you that selling pressure in this market was relatively low. There was the breakout this week. Here's the highs of the range. You can see the market's moved well above those highs. There may be a little period of consolidation in here in the very near term. The selling pressure is found to be low, and I expect it will be considering the low volume this week. The market's likely to make an attempt to push higher in response. That'll continue to put the associated markets under pressure, or at least facing headwinds. E-mini S&P, this is S&P 500 index futures. You can see the market's really accelerated up here. These were quite low volume. The market has pushed above them with this strong bar here. And this week prices come back. It's effectively attempting to consolidate. It's done a pretty good job, really. It's within the top half of this stronger up bar. And volume was slightly increased, but about average overall, so not overwhelming, considering the headwinds the markets will be facing with the stronger US dollar. So that's a pretty good effort overall. I would expect the market may even pull back a little more deeply than what it has done so far, especially if the US dollar continues to strengthen. But at this point, the market's doing a pretty good job. US Treasury 10-year note futures. The market's attempting to consolidate and also doing a pretty good job. Here's the range within which it's attempting to consolidate. You can see the market pulled back here, recovered back into it. This week, price did dip below, but pushed back up to this level. So it's really attempting to hold on at this level. In the background, you've got this reluctance to move lower here, which is effectively some support coming in. And there's further expected support would be drawn out adjacent to this in the background. So you've got continuing support right down to here, at least in the near term. Volume did drop off quite a bit this week, so selling pressure did reduce, and that probably allowed the market just to float back higher here and back to this level. I expect that if supply did increase, the market probably would be pushed down to this level here. This is copper price futures. Copper price futures really pushed lower this week in response to the strength in the US dollar. There was an attempt to consolidate through here, and the market pretty much broke down this week and below the lows of this stronger up bar. which is a bit disappointing. The market's come down to this sort of level, the lows of the range, and I expect an increased attempt to support around that level in like here, around the $4. Gold price futures. Gold price futures saw increased supply drawn out this week. The market was really pushing higher up here. You can see spreads narrowed as price moved higher. Supply was drawn out on this bar, no doubt. The market came back in response, and then selling pressure has really emerged this week, and price has thrust lower with an increased spread and quite high volume. So this might flush out some of the speculators and allow the market to consolidate. The logical levels down here, whether it gets down there or not, will be a good measure of the underlying strength of the market. If the market doesn't come all the way down and consolidates up here, or even attempts to reverse, the market is stronger than if it pushes right down to this level and tries to consolidate down here. Silver price futures. Silver price futures pulled back this week. Spread narrowed in this market. The close was in the middle, and volume was not much higher than the previous week. So this market was less volatile than gold, which is not normally the case. Now, we did note that supply was drawn out on this bar, and the market pulled back in response. And last week, we were anticipating that the market would move below this breakout line and would be a better chance to consolidate in the relative safety found just below that level. And that's pretty much what's happened. Spreads narrowed, closed in the middle, volume was not excessive, and the market's showing you that there's some support in the market at this level. Given any sort of favourable trading conditions, you would expect this market to push higher. However, if the US dollar continues to strengthen, I think sideways is the most you're going to get in the near term. Like crude price futures did pull back in response to this weakness that we noted last week. That was expected. Price is now threatening to break down. It's moved down to the lows of the range. Volume wasn't excessive this week. It was pretty genuine trading, and the market is threatening to break down at this important level here where support has been found previously in the past. So watch this level carefully. There may be a shakeout of the level, or there may be a breakdown. So we'll have to wait and see just how the market trades. It's certainly looking vulnerable. Euro US dollar currency futures were under serious pressure this week with the strength in the US dollar. You can see the market has moved below these important levels where support has been found previously and come down to this level. That's a pretty serious breakdown. I would expect an attempt to support at this level here now with some consolidation coming in. However, if there's still strength in the US dollar and it doesn't consolidate, this market's going to be under some pressure for sure. British pound currency futures also break down this week, perhaps not to the extent of the euro, but it still broke down pretty seriously. You can see how the market was reluctant to move lower here, but this week price failed and moved lower with an increased spread and down to this level here. The next level lower comes through here. So I would expect an attempt to consolidate in here, but if this level gets broken, there's some vacuum in here where the market could push through relatively easily before the next stronger level is down here. So the market's at 126. I expect an attempt to support here. If weakness continues, 124 is a strong possibility. Japanese yen currency futures saw an attempt to support the market this week. Volumes dropped considerably, well below the average. The market did pull back, but closed well above the lows for the week and above the midpoint as well. There's expected support zone through here like this, with the middle and probably the strongest level through here, and that's where the market has found support this week, right in here. So I wouldn't say it's looking strong, it's looking less vulnerable than what it had been previously. It's in a pretty strong support zone, and I expect the market to attempt to consolidate further within this zone. Aussie dollar currency futures also broke down this week with the strength in the US dollar. Here was the level where I expected the market might attempt to support, and hasn't moved down to that level. It's moved past it, and it's sort of hanging within this zone here now. There's a lack of supply probably going to be found in this level, with the next reasonable support level coming through here around the 64-cent level. So any further strength in the US dollar will likely push price down to test this 64-cent level. Any weakness in the US dollar will probably see price push back up and attempt to consolidate around the 65-cent level. Bitcoin futures accelerated higher as expected this week. There is a little gap left behind here. This is an outside gap. There's a lower chance it will be filled in the near term, less than 50%. An inside gap would have a 90 to 95% chance of fill rate. But this is an outside gap and much less likely to be filled, at least in the near term. Just to map this out a little bit, here was the lows of the range. Here was where the market consolidated, made a little minor attempt to break out. Price pushed up to the highs of the range through here. There was an absorption bar in response to test the water at the previous all-time highs. The market accelerated higher last week, and we suggested it probably wouldn't consolidate at this level. It would likely attempt to accelerate further and probably attempt to consolidate in response to it. Now, there was some supply drawn out during the week, and the market did make a pretty good attempt to absorb that supply. You can see that the close is up near the highs of this week's traded range. Volume was pretty high, but not overly, considering the increased spread as price accelerated higher. So I would expect there'll be some attempt to consolidate sort of up here, at least in the near term. If supply is found to be low, I expect a secondary attempt to push higher, either later this week or early next week. If ongoing supply is drawn out and it's persistent, you may find price pushed down a little deeper within this range to attempt to consolidate and absorb the supply. So I would expect the market's going to trade around the 90,000 level and attempt to consolidate. If selling pressure is found to be low, I expect another thrust higher. If selling pressure is ongoing and persistent, I would expect a deeper pullback closer to the 80 level, perhaps in the 82, 83 sort of level, and attempt to consolidate in there. Anything within the range of this week's up bar would be a positive, and I don't expect this gap will be filled in the near term. If it is, the market will be threatening to break down and retest this breakout line here or here. So you can watch the lows of this bar, which is just a fraction above 80. Any break below that level would likely see the market test to break out for strength. But I expect, at least in the near term, the market will attempt to consolidate just above or below the 90,000 level. Just back to the US dollar index futures quickly. It's pretty obvious what's happened. The market has broken out above this level, which is the near-term highs of the range. You've got the highs behind that up here, and that's where the market's pushed up to this week. If the market consolidates in here and finds that selling pressure is low, I do expect an attempt to push higher, and I expect that selling pressure will be relatively weak through here until price meets the next level, which is beginning at 109.3. That comes through here with the highs of the current range through there, and I expect there'll be a bit of a supply vacuum in here where the market will move through that level relatively easily, not drawing out much supply until it reaches this level just below the 110, and I do expect there'll be further supply drawn out in here just above the 110. Okay, thanks for your time. We'll be back again next week. Thank you. See ya.